Okay, thank you, and Neil. Goodbye, Jackie. I know it's nap time, and so thank you all for being here and staying up. Let's start with everybody think about, from the time you were 21 years old, how many different homes you lived in, and do a quick calculation in your head. Okay, take 1 minute, everybody think about how many different places you lived. I've lived in 12 places in 46 years, since I was 21, in 3 different cities. All right, how many people lived in more than 10 places? Okay, how many lived in 5 to 10 places? About even. How many people lived in 5 or less places? Oh, it's nice. And how many people lived in 1 place? Anybody? All right, so the point is, mobility is part of our lives. People move for a lot of different reasons, sometimes because it's better for them. And so what we're going to look at today is, we skipped the slide. Okay, what we're going to look at today is, am I in the right home? And if I'm not in the right home, what are my other options? And what is the right home for me? Okay, and we're going to try to look at this through the point of view of older people. In addition to running the Aging in Place Council, I'm the editor of Tax Credit Advisor magazine, which is a magazine for the affordable housing industry. So I've seen this both from the perspective of a lot of people who live in senior housing and various kinds of senior housing, and from the people who develop it and manage it. So in each situation, we're going to look at these considerations: functionality, location and accessibility, availability of services, and affordability. Now, I'm not an engineer by any means. Unlike a lot of the other presentations, I'm not going to be presenting solutions. I'm going to present the problems, and then hopefully it will inspire you folks to come up with some creative solutions. So functionality is, of course, can you navigate your home? It's the mobility that Karen and some of the other people were speaking about. Location and accessibility is, can you find and access the things you need? Can you access the built environment that you live in? Can you get to the store? Can you get the social engagement that you want to continue through your older life, the things that you love to do that bring happiness to you? Availability of services is all about in-home services. Can you find the care that you need, the financial advisors, the food delivery, transportation, all the services that you'll need to access from your home? And of course, affordability is, can you afford both your home as well as the rest of your monthly regular expenses? So we're going to shoot through, okay, this is a look at how our needs change as we age. And as you can see, there's minor changes as you go from 50 to 60, which is green to yellow. The gap seems to get bigger as you go to 70, and then when you go to 80, it really shoots up. And the needs are extreme when you reach 80. These are some of the technological devices and approaches that we're either using today or talking about today. Caregiving, of course, caregiving is expensive, and we'll talk about that. And one way to cut down on the expenses is to have monitors and sensors in your house so that your family or other people could even follow you on their phones, like a lot of my friends do, to their parents. And you cut down the number of hours you have caregiving by accessing yourself to other people. Security, of course, Ring is a new thing that everybody loves having in their homes so they can see who's outside the door. Medication management. My mother lied to us for years, did take her pills and told us every day she did. I did see a device recently where it was a pill with a microchip in it, and if you took the pill with the microchip, somebody else could look at their cell phone and see whether you were taking your medications or not. So, fall alerts, you all know about. all the new communication toys, Alexa and Echo, Buddy and Cutie are robots that are basically the same as Alexa, but they look like they're somebody you're talking to. So it encourages you to use it more. Of course, we're all hoping for self-driving cars, and a lot of social engagement now is conducted by people communicating by seeing each other on their computers. So these are the living situations we're going to look at. We're going to start with the most common and the most utilized, which is single-family home ownership, and we're going to go through a whole list of senior options. All right, so single-family, Long Island is all about single-family. We have ranch houses, split-level houses, colonials, and Cape Cods. The split level is what I refer to as the anti-aging house, and it's one of the most common houses out here. It's interesting that housing is very different regionally in the country. You find the multi-story houses in the Northeast and on the West Coast, but in the South, like 80% of the houses are one story. So single-family houses, 80% of the people over 60 live in them now. Mortgage debt is increasing, which it hasn't in the past. People are building up more debt at later ages. You're totally responsible for the upkeep and change of your house. You don't have assistance with that. It does provide you access to home equity. As you pay off your mortgage and you're paying off the value of your home, you start to accumulate an extra source of spending if you choose to access it either through a HELOC or through a reverse mortgage. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot more products like that because this is becoming more of a necessity. And what most accountants look for, or most money managers look for, is that you pay 28 to 30% of your income on housing. This just shows that the ownership rate of the older sector, the over 65 sector, is by far the highest ownership rate in the country. So here we go, looking at the considerations for single-family housing. There's a great fear of steps, but a home can be modified since you own it. Location and accessibility. Usually people live in their homes for a good deal of time, and so they build up friendships. Often they have access, they live close to their family, and usually they're accustomed to all the services that are available to them in the community, so that's an advantage. Services are available to you, of course, but you have to find them yourself. There isn't anybody out there helping you, or you could find someone to help you find them. And affordability, homes build wealth, and they give you access to home equity as another means of paying for the other services that you need. All right, so you can modify your own home. So here are the most common modifications. Eliminating the steps to enter your home, single floor living. One of the most important things for older people. Steps are the biggest problem. And you see the list of the others. This just shows a comparison of various regions of the country and which of these home modifications people have been doing. And you can see there's a great deal of single floor living throughout the country, much less in the Northeast than any place else. No step entry has become popular, but there's very little moving around of door handles and levers, and there's very little expansions of doors and hallways. And here's the cost to people of doing these things. What most people seem to want, especially in the Northeast, is the adding of a first floor master suite to try to make a colonial or a Cape Cod or even a split level work. And that's the most expensive. This is an interesting factoid, that the cost of adding a master bedroom suite and a bathroom on the first floor is much less than moving into a nursing home or paying for assisted living in an assisted living community for any period of time. So here's the considerations to modify your home. You can modify it, but there's going to be a cost to it. So can you afford it? It keeps you where you want to be. You're in the same situation with finding services that you are before you modify it. And affordability, again, can you afford to both modify and pay for your other obligations? So, should the 80% of the people who live in single-family homes stay there, and what are the alternatives? A lot of my favorite buildings are in this PowerPoint. These two buildings, one's in Portland, Maine, the bottom one's in Portland, Maine, the top one's in Portland, Oregon. Both of them have gardens where the residents grow their food, and they have family group kitchens on the first floor and dining room, so the people grow the food on their roof or on the building and then cook it together downstairs. One of the solutions to loneliness. So multifamily housing, of course, most is rental, so you're not building up any equity in it, and you're not going to have access to that equity. Usually there is a staff to support the building, at least, if not to help you within your own apartment. You have to care for your unit, but you don't have to care for the property. It's much easier to leave if you want to relocate than selling your own home. Almost all apartments are on one level, of course. And you can sometimes move within the same building, so it makes moving easier. All right, let's go through that. So senior housing, this is market rate senior housing. That was a building in Charleston, by the way. So senior housing, market senior housing usually is, you can live independently as you have been, as you might in a non-specific senior unit, but usually there is some support. You're generally living amongst people who are your age. A lot of people lose their friends as time goes on, and they move into a community where they can form new friendships. Some of senior housing provides some resident services. Sometimes the residents give each other support, and we're going to show some examples of that. So here's the considerations for senior housing. Okay, CCRCs. This is La Posada in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. Beautiful place, but this is a very expensive option, CCRCs. CCRCs are designed for a continuum of care. So you start with independent living, and then for the same fee you're paying for independent. If you need assisted living, you can move into assisted living. They have rehab programs at many of them, and many of them have memory care programs. A lot of them require high entry fees. You have to buy your way in. It could be $100,000, it could be $500,000. Usually you get a high percentage of that back when you give up the unit and somebody else moves in and pays the entry fee. So up to 90% in a lot of the places. It costs $5,000 to $10,000 a month, and there's about 2,000 of them in the country. This model has not been working that well financially for the developers. So we're starting to see fewer of these buy-in type communities. We're seeing mostly rentals now going forward. So here are the considerations here. They're built with all your personal considerations in mind. They're trying to look at your whole future. They want to keep you there for the rest of your life. Location and accessibility, well, there's only 2,000 in the country. So it's not like you could go to in any community and find the CCRC that's right for you. They're mostly in Florida and California. Almost all the services are provided. Most of them are included with your monthly fee. The one that isn't is a personal full-time caregiver. If you need caregiving for 8 hours or 24 hours a week, that's usually additional. And they're expensive. Affordable housing. This is actually Obama's neighborhood in Chicago on the south side, following a recent rehab. So affordable housing is a great service that we perform in this country, but there's not nearly enough of it. The affordable housing business with current tax forgiveness and other things, and other programs, government programs, state programs, builds about 100 to 150,000 a year, and we have a shortage of 7.2 million. So, of course, there's a new Cantwell-Hatch bill that added 50% to the tax credits, but that only pushes it up to 180 to 240,000 a year. There are extreme regulations. Now, you have to qualify for affordable housing. It's based on area median income. Generally, the requirements are there's a 30% level, there's a 60% level, and there's an 80% level. And generally, the way it works is if you make 30% of area median income, you pay 30% of what your income is for the month as your rent, and you get housing vouchers, either Section 8 vouchers or Section 202 vouchers. There's various government programs to pay for the rest. So if you get $2,000 a month in Social Security and you've qualified, you'd pay $600 a month for your apartment, whatever the cost of the apartment is. And the vouchers would cover the rest. Now there's two kinds of vouchers. There are housing choice vouchers, which are awarded to you, and you go out and find the apartment. And there's project-based vouchers, which are attached to the building, to the apartment. And so whoever lives there gets the benefit. We can skip this. This just explains the voucher program. So the functionality, the buildings vary greatly. There's a lot of housing from public housing in past generations, some that is not in great shape. There's a very active government program now called RAD to try to preserve those buildings and redesign them. And then there's a lot of new buildings that are beautiful and that take into consideration a lot of the universal design features, easy showers that are easy to get into, lack of no steps, wide hallways, in some cases even sit-down kitchens that you could work at. A lot of the assisted living facilities provide a variety of services. A lot of them have resident service managers who are like a concierge, as we spoke about earlier on, and they will go out and find the services for you that you need. And the affordability, well, it has subsidies. So if you could qualify, there's a long waiting list though for almost all affordable housing. There were recent buildings in New York where they had like 100 or 150 units, and there were thousands of people who were trying to get into the buildings. Nursing homes, of course, there's about 15,000 facilities in the country. About 1,000,007 people are living there. They cost about $83,000 a year, but it's covered by insurance. But they're not everybody's favorite place to live. And really the whole aging in place movement, when you cut to the bottom of it, is about trying to stay out of nursing homes and live in one of these other options. Special housing, for years, people with mental health issues were thrown into institutions. Bedlam was the name of an institution in London, and that's where the word came from. But over the past 40 years, The whole attitude towards mental housing has changed, and there were great programs to try to help people with mental issues to be able to live independently. You see there's currently 187,000 people, but we still need 65,000 more homes in the country. People who live in independent, supportive mental health housing have these outcomes: 50% fewer days in psychiatric hospitals, and it's a way for them to sustain social connections. I'm zipping through all this because it's late in the day. So here are the advantages and the problems in mental housing. It's staff. Guidance is at the core of it. To qualify for any government-supported mental housing program, you have to agree to counseling. And you usually have a full-time counsel. Location and accessibility, well, it varies greatly around the country, but all the services are usually on site. So you don't have to go out and find them yourself. Veterans housing is a new building up the block from the Capitol in Washington, D.C. It's a beautiful building. Okay, veterans housing, HUD has this tracking program where they try to track veteran homelessness. They pick a night, and I'm not quite sure how they do it. Shelley Horowitz from Stony Brook seems to understand the program and know how they do it. But in January 2017, this is what they found. There is a housing voucher program to pay the rent of veterans. For the last 8.5 years, they gave out 10,000 vouchers a year. They think they cut veteran homelessness in half in the country, wiped it out completely in a couple of cities like New Orleans, where Mitch Landrieu was very aggressive about it. For some reason, there are no housing vouchers in this year's budget that was just passed. I don't quite understand what that's about. So veteran housing, they give first crack to people with mental illness, with substance history, with physical ailments, and the program up to all the other veterans. Again, case management is a part of the program, and everybody who lives in veterans housing has to have case management. Now we go to some of the oddities, granny houses. Here's a 350-foot granny house with a bedroom, a kitchen, a bathroom. Jerry Brown in California has decided this is the solution to the housing problem. And so he did change a lot of the zoning and parking regulations in the state to make it much easier to build a granny house and have extra people living on your property. Los Angeles last year went from 124 granny houses built a year to 2,000. And this year they're expecting 5,000 are going to be built. So they're also called accessible dwelling units. I told you about, in a lot of states, there are zoning requirements and parking restrictions. I mean, this seems like a Long Island solution. This seems like it would be very valuable for people on Long Island.
How many of those actually have elderly people living there?
I don't know the answer to that. A lot of people build a granny house and rent out the main house to make additional income and then live in the granny house. So again, here are the housing considerations. They're one floor. They're usually on the property of family members. So you have help and care and people to help you find the care that you need. Again, you have to find the services for yourself. They're not on the property like assisted living or affordable housing, but you have your family to help you. And if your family is building it or it's a small unit, it should be affordable. Micro units are about the same size as granny houses, 350 feet. It's become a big project in Seattle. They have buildings where you live in a tiny unit and there's a lot of common space. There's common kitchens, common TV rooms. common living rooms. It encourages social interaction. It mostly seems to be focused now on workforce and younger people who are looking for their first place to live. It's usually affordable in cities that usually are not affordable. The units in Seattle are $600 to $1,000 a month. I told you about the congregate stuff. If you've been to IKEA and you go into their little rooms, you get a sense of what a micro unit is like. So here are the considerations for micro units. Common housing is another option these days. Golden Girls Network. This is an ad that people posted to try to find people to live with them and share housing. Okay, and this is a small group of what I call outliers, which may not be fair. Creative solutions to housing problems. Almost all of these address the isolation issue and the loneliness issue that was discussed and presented this morning. Nestily is a service in Boston started by 3 women who graduated from MIT about 2 or 3 years ago, and it places college students in spare bedrooms in the apartments of older people who are living alone. And part of it is the college students are supposed to provide a certain amount of services to help out the older people. And to some extent it addresses the loneliness factor. The villages you probably all know about, although there are none on Long Island, which is very surprising. Villages are a group of people living in single family homes, get together, and they each chip in money for a period of time, and the money goes to paying the staff. Basically the same as resident service directors in an affordable housing or an assisted living facility. And their staff's job is to go out and find the services for them. There are about 200 villages all over the country now. They have an association, but they're each run in their own way, so there's a great variety. Beacon Hill in Boston was the first one. A company called Meta Housing in California has built 3 arts colonies. They're based on research done by a professor at George Washington University that showed people who participate in the arts have fewer doctor visits, fewer medications, fewer falls. And so these buildings have art studios, theaters, music rooms, and they're all for people over 50, and the people who live there are required to participate in one of the arts activities. There's 3 of them so far, and they're looking to expand it. This is one of my favorites. This is the mural in a building in Washington, D.C. called Genesis. This is built by an organization called Generations of Hope that encourages intergenerational living. There are 17 units in this building for seniors and senior couples, and there's 8 units for single mothers who have to go back into the workforce and can't afford not to work anymore. And so in order to live there, the seniors have to pledge 100 hours a quarter of caregiving for the children, and the mothers have to pledge 50 hours of running errands and providing services for the seniors. This is the Actors Home in Edgewood Cliffs, New Jersey. I just show this because this is an interesting concept. People living with other people who share their careers. And so, it deals certainly with the loneliness factor. There's a lot of nostalgia. The building's filled with all kinds of elements from the industry that these people worked in. And it's one way to sustain social engagement into your later years. Damerscott, Maine. And Damerscott are a doctor named Alan Teal, who wrote a book called Alone No More, which you might take a look at. During the summer, there's a lot of interaction amongst the people, but during the winter, when it starts to snow, older people are afraid to go out of their homes. So he's hooked everybody up, and all the social events that they would go to, they now do on the computer during the winter months, so they can continue to meet with each other, have meetings, have parties, do whatever else they want to do. This is another one of my favorites. This is Hagway. This is outside Amsterdam. This is a dementia care facility, and the researchers who worked here discovered that older people are most comfortable in the era in which they were in their 20s and their 30s. That people like to depend on the music, the literature, the television programs, all the things from that period. So this building has this facility has 7 different buildings, and each one is a different decade. And the staff in the building wears the clothes from that decade, and they play the music from that decade all the time, and all the photos and decorations and all is memorabilia from the period in which you lived. Yes, I'm going to finish. So here's the dream home, a private house with no mortgage, 1 level. Accessibility to everything in your home. You have home equity available to you, you're near your children, you need your favorite activities, your utility costs are low because the community has added solar or anything else. Property tax deferral available to you, you have a self-driving car, and there's an aging-in-place center nearby to provide the services you need. And here's a bibliography for you all. So this will all be posted. Thank you.
Marty, I have one question.
Sure.
To start with. Like most of these homes are based on structural parts. Like how can technology can come into play and make it easier for all of us to live? Most of them are like structured, like 1 floor and everything.
Everybody should look at go to the website of a company called Katerra. That is Katerra. They're the most technologically creative company in building today. They're coming up with all kinds of design solutions for different kinds of building. On their website, there's a 1-minute or 2-minute video that takes you through the building, the 24-unit apartment building, in a month. They're an amazing company doing a lot of creative stuff.
Can we go on?
Yes, I wanted to answer your question.
Okay, please go ahead.
So we have Fawn and I have been brainstorming some of this. And what you have to think about, everything that was talked about today, disability, height. So for example, kitchens. There has to be a new way to build a kitchen. Why? Because think of where all the stuff is in the kitchen. Your cabinets. Older adults putting them on, what do we call it, on ladders, not good, okay? But that's where you put things. So those are the kinds of things you have to think accessible. And if something is too high or too low, we need a new way. And that's where engineering can come in.